We're back for another episode of the Bad Ideas podcast with Mr. Erik Frederick, the CEO of Uno Restaurants, near and dear to my heart from young childhood all the way up to now. Thank you so much for making time to be here with us.
Oh, absolutely, Nick. Looking forward to it.
So you guys, are you coast to coast or Midwest to East?
And well, we're primarily up and down the East Coast.
Okay.
But obviously we have our original restaurants in Chicago, some in Michigan and Ohio. But we go down as far as Virginia Beach. But we're also in Saudi Arabia, India, and soon to be Sri Lanka.
Wow. And how many restaurants altogether?
About 80.
80, yeah, beautiful. Yeah, that was always the treat, every couple months. How months we'd go out, we'd get them frozen, and we'd have Uno. It was amazing. Just that thick crust, something different.
Oh, glad to hear.
But outside of that, so going through your background, leadership at Staples, another massive brand that everybody in my circle knows, and you were there for a while, over 10 years, it looks like.
Yeah, 11 years.
Yeah, and then before that, the Navy. It almost feels like they all kind of connect to one another, right?
Well, I did. I after Navy, I'd gone to grad school, and I spent kind of the allure of Wall Street. I worked on Wall Street for 3 years, and then just decided I needed to run something, and misleading people, and probably had too much money for my own good, so had to get rid of that. So
yeah. So you took a job, and you did a couple things before Staples. How'd you find your way there?
How did I find my way to Staples?
Yeah.
So as I said, I spent 6 years in the Navy, and went to business school to basically learn some, tools to help me transition into, the private sector and all that kind of thing. And I had a lot of friends from undergrad who were working on Wall Street, and it was almost like this magnetic pull. Right.
You had to go.
To go and oh, you're crazy, and there's so much money, and this is great, and they're all having a ball and everything. And I did that, and I did for 3 years. I worked at an amazing company called Donaldson, Lufkin and Jenrette, and had amazing clients and worked with amazing people, but and honestly made really, really good money, as you can imagine, working for a bank in the .com heydays.
Yeah.
But there was something really weird. I didn't enjoy my day job. So, like I wasn't really leading people. I wasn't in charge of, this thing happening or whatever. And so I just did some soul searching and a little bit of career counseling. And, one of my clients was running a .com startup, and he said, look, I'm kind of looking for a, head of finance and operations, a little bit of a right hand. And would you consider leaving and, coming here? And I had no illusions about, becoming a .com millionaire, but it seemed like a decent transition. Right. And, from that, and, my hours probably doubled. My pay got cut by 2/3. And all my friends said, you're the happiest we've seen you. So
that's wild.
It just, you can't go for the money, because if you go for the money, you're just going to be miserable, and it's no way to live.
Yeah. That's a nugget. So stay mission driven all the way through.
Yeah. And that lasted, a little over a year and a half. And we went the way of a lot of bombs in those days and everything. And, it's funny. One of the things from DLJ that I very much believe then and still do is that very well-run companies typically outperform in the stock market, and thus your stock options, less well-run companies. Also, you have better people, which makes life more fun to work with. And Staples was one of the, in 2001, one of the best-run companies in America. We did the exact same thing Office Depot and Office Max did, in the same places, selling the same product, but we did it for 500 basis points more in profit. And, we did it for, 1,000 different points of light of execution, if you will. And just incredible people I work with there. It was really phenomenal.
Yeah. And just the team, the scale of Staples in the heyday was massive. So awesome. And then found your way to Uno?
A couple stops along the way. As much as I absolutely loved Staples, they, like any great empire, it's always the same.
Mm.
It's always the same problem that leads to the demise, and it's arrogance. It's believing what you did you can always do. It's believing that
Yeah.
bigger is always better and all that kind of thing. And the company did a massive acquisition, outrageously overpaid for it, and frankly bought business for basically we bought a company that specialized in the Fortune 100. As you can imagine, it was extremely low margin, and it just turned the place into a political,
Oh man.
nightmare. And I kind of went like, all of a sudden, I felt like I was working at the UN, and it was just awful. And so we had a big reorg in 2012, and I just wasn't happy there anymore. And so, I took the package. I wanted to take a year off. I'd done well and everything, and my wife was working. I spent a year effectively doing career coaching for veterans who are getting out of the military and helping them find their place in life and what they were going to do. And that was okay, but I kind of went back to I'm really an individual contributor, and this is never really going to be a business and all of that. And so, and it was a little bit like, okay, it's been a year, enough is enough. And then I went through a series of private equity kind of CFO turnaround, jobs
Yeah.
in most places, kind of, not the bean counter CFO, but closer to the CFO, COO, right
Yeah.
hand. My veteran friend said, "You're a professional XO." My favorite of all time career compliments is I had a CEO call me his wartime consigliere. And so,
Yeah.
yeah. And so, at any rate, I did that for a while. And then in 2018, an opportunity came up to work at Uno, which again, I'm from Chicago, living in Boston, because the company grew here and everything.
Yeah.
And so a chance to go be the CFO at Uno was just like, some kid from New York growing up to be the CFO of the Yankees. I mean, it was just like,
Yeah.
and so it was phenomenal. And then in April of 2010, the board and my CEO went their separate ways, and they asked me to run the company and sort of get us out of COVID. And here I am 4 years later. So
Yeah. Different kind of battle, same
yeah,
leadership, right? That's amazing. That's just amazing. Well, awesome to have you here. I'm certain that from the Navy through Staples, through private equity, through Wall Street, all the way up to Uno, you've experienced your fair share of really really bad business ideas and kind of built a reputation on having the steady hand to see through them. So I'm hoping we can put that in practice over a couple of minutes here on the show. What do you think?
well, in terms of bad ideas I've made, we've only got another 40 minutes, so
Yeah.
we're gonna have
Yeah.
to down select.
Yeah. Well, we have, so here's the thing. So I'll pull up this bad idea. We have one that my team found for the show. I haven't looked at it yet, but I'll read it to you. We'll react to that. Then we'll spend as long as we can talking about why it's bad, and
Oh,
when
I
we
thought
run
my
out of
bad
bad stuff.
ideas.
Oh no, we can't hear yours.
Oh,
Those
okay.
are
Because I got
those are
hundreds of those.
first class classified. We got to keep those
My
locked
direct
down.
report would be the first to tell you. But anyways,
Yeah. No, this is one we'll evaluate together. So yeah, when we run out of bad stuff to say, we'll try to turn it around and make it something
okay,
good. Sound good? All right. All right. The big reveal. I feel like I should have an envelope I can peel
okay.
on, the Oscars last night. So our bad idea, it's retail focused. It is in-store camping gear rental. Customers can rent camping equipment while shopping and set up camp inside the store to test the products overnight. So it's a retail location where you can actually camp in the location
And they can stay overnight.
in your retail store.
Okay,
It seems like a bad idea.
so so there's a couple things that idea would have to overcome.
Mm,
One, a big part of retail is floor space because, right, you're paying for it. And if you're going to be able to set
mm.
up your tents alone, you're going to take up selling space on the floor to do that,
Yeah.
right? Second, when I think about testing camping, I don't camp indoors and I camp outside. And so are you really testing it out? Are you really testing it to the elements and all of that?
Yeah.
Next I would probably say, well, um, I'm not sure I would do it with every tent or product I had, because I guess the converse is, would you buy a tent that somebody else had slept in for the night or whatever? And then what's the cost going to be to put all that together and everything like that? So you got a few
Yeah.
challenges with that.
Yeah.
Offsetting that, is okay. Do you make money renting them overnight? And how much do you make? Somewhere between, as much as the tent itself, you got a deal. A dollar for the privilege or just a menial deposit, not so much, because it's not going to be a revenue maker. But I don't know. Those are some of the things that I would think up off the top of my head. My guess is someone figuring out how to do it, and they're doing extremely well. So.
Yeah, right. I'm just thinking about, how Apple, like every September, they roll out those big new product release
Yes.
shows where they basically like hype up the exact same product again in a new case or something. But they make like $1 trillion a year doing that. And immediately after the keynotes, people start lining up at Apple stores waiting for, stores to open and start shipping.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what this made me think of. Like, I mean, sales volumes have to be insane over those couple days that people are waiting like 24/7 to get into the store. So I wonder if that's what this guy was thinking. If I could even have them in the store, maybe if I lose a little bit renting the tent, but they buy tons of things for their stay overnight, that's where it's kind of made up. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, Nick, you bring up a good point because, and especially the way you tie it to Apple, there are always people who want to be first, who want to be the early adapters and all that kind of thing. You open a new restaurant, I guarantee the people who go to those new restaurants first are the same people who are waiting outside of the Apple store. What's great about those folks is they tend to be the ones who tell people who then tell everybody else. And you can get a really good reputation, and they can decide, is this cool? Is this not cool? And all of that. So when we open a restaurant, we're extremely careful and somewhat promotional to make sure that we get that sort of influx. And so if you go back to the camping thing, if you were able to invite like the influencers, right? And the people who are really into camping to do that and say, wow, this is really, really cool. And then in time, you can probably, you won't have as many people doing it as you might think are doing it and all that kind of thing, and guardrails around it. And we're not doing
Just
it on
more
Monday
controlled
night and all that good stuff, but as a promotional way to open, not so much as a business model, but it's not a bad way to get people into it, if you will.
Yeah. So when you mentioned opening a restaurant, who to go to get into the restaurant the first week to kind of help get that reputation going, or is it just something you try to target?
Well, we try to target it, but no matter what, you start announcing yourself, and there's just a certain element that, hey, there's a new place, and they're going to go. They're going to find it. They're looking for all that, and we've got a social media partner who thinks they know, people who do that. There's influencers who are always looking to talk about the new place and all that kind of thing. And so you invite them and whatnot. And so, yeah, but then you work like crazy to make sure your operations are perfect. So.
Yeah, I mean that's the magic of it, right? You were talking about staples in your backstory. I feel like you were competing with two other major retailers, but in the restaurant business, you're competing with everybody. It's like way more competition.
Amazon was a pretty formidable, competitor back then, and so were the club stores because, they were, a lot of them were selling, some of our products, especially paper, as a loss leader. That's always a tough thing in any business when your main product is somebody else's loss leader. So.
Yeah, especially big ones like Costco is what you're talking about, right? Costco and Sam's Club. Yeah. But I mean, you compare that to the restaurant business. I mean, I'm in South Florida right now, and there's got to be 25 restaurants on the single street to the right of me here.
Yeah.
And they're all competing for, I mean, it's probably overgeneral to say the same customer because some people want to eat nice, some want Asian, some want American, but
sure.
The walk-in traffic is the same. Like they're all competing for the same pool of walk-in traffic. So that has to come down to operations. Do you serve
Well,
them better?
it,
Is your quality
it
better?
comes down to a bunch of things, and New England's a little different than Florida. I think
Yeah.
the chain restaurant in Florida does extremely well, whereas like, no one has ever concepted a restaurant in New England. It's just incredibly
Yeah.
difficult market and sometimes anti, chain and whatnot. But I mean, look, I go out to eat probably more than I should, and we mix it up, just like I'm sure you do and everybody
Mm-hmm.
else does. And so there's a couple key things. You say, where do you want to go to eat tonight? And you're going to rattle off, 4 or 5 places. Well, you don't want to be number 6, okay, in a list of where do you want to go. And so you've got to stay relevant. A lot of people talk about exceptional service. And on a scale of 1 to 5, I wish everybody in our restaurant had a 5. But
Mm-hmm.
another big thing is you can't afford a 1 or a 2. The ones are not coming back. They're just not. And they're probably going to tell somebody else they had an awful experience.
Mm-hmm.
The 2 is not coming back. They may give you a chance, probably not. 3,
Yeah.
once in a blue moon. And so you've really got to have the operational chops to say, why aren't they coming back? And it's everything from, their experience in the restaurant. And there's probably 5 or 6, tons of things that go into that too. How was the food? I mean, was the food good? Right.
Mm-hmm.
And was it priced in a way where you're like, you know what, it was worth it, right? Because I mean, I've gotten, I, I've gotten one of the chain restaurants offers their version of a margarita for $1, and I won't name names. I got it, and I wanted my money back. I'm like, this is the worst thing ever. But then there's a Mexican place I love too, and their margarita is $15, and damned if it's not worth it, And so a lot of it just kind of there really is sort of that play on it, and a lot of it comes down to when you leave, how did you feel? And if you felt great, and there's a lot of ways that is, then you'll come back. And if you go someplace else and you feel like you got ripped off or you didn't feel like that was your people, then maybe not so much.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like, part of the reason why we're doing the show, it was one to talk to the CEO of Uno Restaurants, because that's always the dream. But no, it's just, you're really making it work. I mean, you've done it at several organizations so far. You're survived COVID in the restaurant business. I mean, that's amazing. And hearing about the things that you focus on, I think the bad idea is just a spark for that. It's also kind of funny to think about people camping in a store, but outside of that, like understanding where your focus goes, I think is great for our audience to hear, because we're kind of in the middle of this age of distraction where everyone's like, can I automate this, or will AI displace this for me? And at the end of the day, regardless of the tool set you get, customers still have to buy from you. And like you said, they still have to feel good about it. And that's not just the service, it's the price, it's the whole package. And hearing the way you break it down, and arguably the most competitive marketplace, like New England restaurants, you're running a successful chain there, is pretty valuable.
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about simplicity, that was probably one of the biggest things we had to do. Just by way of background on our business, of course, we operate restaurants. We operate about 30 of them, but we also franchise 50 of them. And in the franchise business, I mean, when you think about brand and what that means, running a restaurant, that means, was the pizza good? Was it a value? All the things we just talked about. But from a franchise perspective, is to my franchisees, are you making money? Right? Do you see growth in the brand? And what is that relationship? Because that is very much, it's not, I wouldn't call it business to business. I'd call it business to entrepreneur, and, most of the cases. We've got a couple bigger guys, but nothing, but at the end of the day, they have to decide, do I want to own a full service restaurant? And if I do I want to be in pizza? Which category do I want to be in? And then why would I want to be in Uno? Right. And so you have to, along with the choices of, okay, I want to go eat tonight. Where do I want to go eat? So you have to nail both of that. And that's much bigger, less so on operations and much so on managing a brand, providing support and making them as successful as you can be, but also listening to them and knowing that someone's going to tell you to go right. Someone's going to tell you to go left. Someone's going to want to say, don't go anywhere. And you just have to make the best decision you can. Right. And then the third business we had is we had a frozen pizza manufacturing plant that sold to grocery stores and convenience
That's what
stores
I
and the
grew
club
up on.
stores and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Unionized plant, and so here we are
Mhm.
unionized and all that kind of thing. And if I bring it back up, so Applebee's by and large does not operate restaurants. Dine Brand pretty much with Applebee's only franchises. They'll operate, but more often than not, it's them buying
Yeah.
a distressed franchisee, fix up and send it back. So they're really not operating. And then you go over to Chili's or Olive Garden, they don't franchise by and large in the U.S. So they're just operating, right?
Mm-hmm.
And neither of them seem to have a manufacturing plant, which has no operational synergies, a lot of learning that's applicable that we applied.
Yeah.
But the first thing we had to do is say, what kind of company do we want to be 5 years out? And it's decidedly an asset light, franchise company. So, and part of that is building out our franchise base. We have an exciting growth strategy with that. And
Mm-hmm.
also part of it is offering our restaurants to the general managers to purchase and let them be franchisees and have a piece of the American dream.
So you
And
guys get it started and you sell to management?
yeah, knock on
That's
wood, if the
amazing.
bankers and the lawyers do everything, we'll close with our manager in our Revere restaurant next week, Revere, Massachusetts. And we can't wait to have her on board. And
That's
so
amazing.
it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, that's amazing. And that's true upward mobility too, right? You run something well and part of a good organization and then you become an owner.
Yeah.
That's
A
the real
genuine
dream.
owner. It's their
Yeah.
restaurant, not just, there's managing partner programs, which are amazing. And we probably ought to come up with that to baby step into it, where you write a
Yeah.
check and you're really a partner and you own half of it. But either way, I mean, that's the American dream, right? Is the ability to kind of move up. And if you're willing to, take a little bit of a risk and put your blood, sweat, and tears into it, you can do well.
That's amazing. We got nugget after nugget here. The real American dream, shifting business models, how to operate the right way, how to compete. I think we're going to have like 20 snippets that go out over the internet. Just little selectively pulled things of, you advising. But back to our really bad idea. So we've talked about some
Okay.
good ideas that you're running in practice, but back to our really bad one of camping out inside of a retail store. So we established that there's maybe some merit to having influential people with some kind of audience doing this in sort of a controlled way. Is there any other path you see this specifically becoming, a business model in and of itself that has some sort of viability? Like anything that would give it legs?
Well, if you said, Eric, this is your business, they're doing it. You have to go make it work. It is what it is.
Hmm.
So I would want the retail stores to be in a destinational place. Most certainly not an enclosed mall. I'd probably want it more on the outskirts of town. And I say that for a couple of reasons. I say that because one, the real estate is a lot cheaper there, so I can be bigger. Second, I'd want the land where ultimately, and I probably wouldn't do it every night. I'd probably restrict it to, like, I don't know, Thursday through Sunday. We could figure that out, right?
Hmm.
And what I would want is I'd have several tents out there and pick your tent and almost make it like I'd have like a campfire, right? And maybe cook your food, cowboy. So, like, because people want to go camping. Well, here's a night to you can actually go camping and have an amazing experience, and potentially meet other like-minded people and swap camping stories and all that kind of thing, you know. And to do that, I would probably get some of the manufacturers of the camping gear to sponsor those things, right?
There you go. Cover the cost.
And yeah, if not just flat out do some of the co-op advertising and whatnot. And you could even do it that way. I am decidedly not a camper. It's why I went Navy, not Army. My idea of camping is no limes at the pool bar, but it's but if, like, I don't know, a given camping, we'll call it, whether it's a tent or a sleeping bag company came out with some new ones. Hey, we're going to have this party, or Coleman came out with a new kind of grill. We're going to have this, and they're going to sponsor it, and people could come try it out. I don't know. The other thing you could do is tie it into a rewards program. And if you're like one of the President's Club of the Insiders or whatever, you get this camping night or whatever, where you can try out the gear or whatever. So
Those are some good ideas. So a lot of we're basically saying that the end consumer isn't going to fund this on their own. Like we couldn't make it work well enough without the offsets from the manufacturer and advertisers to actually cover the cost of hosting and making it an
Yeah.
event. But on the flip side,
I'd want a deposit if you got to bring it back in good condition.
yeah,
Just like when
yeah,
you go camping, right? You leave where you hiked as nice as you found it. So
yeah. But I mean, that's a good point. We're talking about the value of reach. Really, it's the promotional value for the manufacturers that makes it good. So the manufacturer is really the end customer. It's not so much the camper, because they want the reach and whatever media comes
yeah,
of this.
yeah. But the camping would have to be outside and all that. And then
Mhm.
the other thing, not that I'm, don't worry, I'm not going to go out and start this camping, company. Is
Yeah,
you would want employees who could do it for free, because now all of a sudden they would be really into camping. You would get people who are into camp. Like I would never apply, and
yeah,
so
yeah.
I'd go work at a pizza place where I get all the pizza I want for free, and so oh wait, so so at any rate, you'd have like this self-selecting process of doing it. There's some remarkable companies. One comes to mind, Roadrunner Sports. Like I call them and get my shoes from them. Everybody there's a runner, like they've run in the shoe that I'm about
Yeah.
to buy. All this, and that could make you like a really premium place where people could say, "Hey, I know what you guys do. You know your stuff." It's not just someone who could be working anywhere next week. They're really into camping and therefore they care enough to know. Passion's a real big driver. Passion makes you care well beyond what's in the training manual.
Yeah, it's just so hard to screen for because
Yeah.
anyone can make it sound that way in an interview and then in real life.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that's wild. All right, so it's a bad idea to camp out in the store, leave people there overnight, and expect the customer to pay for it. But potentially, it's a good idea if you use this as a culture builder for your stores. To attract people who
Mhm.
are campers there, and you partner with the manufacturers to turn it into more of an experience. That way you're offsetting some of the cost. It's not solely based on the retail value of the experience, and you're monetizing that reach a little more. Is that
Yeah.
kind of what we're getting to?
Yeah. You don't have a ton of those stores, but you have enough. And if you can get the brand globally, now you can build an online presence and people know. Like I've never set foot into a Roadrunner store, but I was told about it and I talked to, next thing you know, now you're doing a great business that way.
Yeah, this is
But
amazing. This
still,
is amazing.
it seems like a bad idea to me. Whoever's doing it, more power to you. That's what I love about America. You can make anything happen if you really
I
try.
know. I know. This is wild. So how do people, thank you so much for coming on. It's just so rare we get to talk to someone who's built two really significant companies, like you have. So the experience, I mean, it just bleeds through the things that you're saying at so many
Well, I
levels.
can't take credit for building Uno. Like I said, a guy named Mike Sewell had the
Mm.
idea, in 1943, and then Aaron Spencer, who's pretty much our Ray Kroc, and
Yeah.
he's the guy who built it to what it is today.
Yeah.
I'm sort of the guy who kind of came in at the depths of COVID and kept things going and sold off the retail business and hopefully has us focused on a path of franchising growth.
Yeah. Well, so that was going to be my last question. How do people, so if they're interested in franchising with you, do they get in touch with you? Is there a site they go to? How do they get
Yeah,
involved?
yeah, they certainly go to our site, and that's a really good, probably the best place to start. You can read all about our franchising program and see things and whatnot, and then you kind of fill out a form, tell us a little bit about yourself and whatnot. What I will tell you is we've got, I think, a very interesting franchise growth strategy. What we're doing is we're partnering with hotel operators and saying, hey, all that takeout pizza that comes in your front door that you don't get anything for? Well, how would you like to get that? Right. And so when you're in the middle of redoing your restaurant, whether it's just a normal remodel or you bought a restaurant and now you have to remodel things, or you're just going through, a conversion from one brand to another, you're going to spend money on your restaurant. but your restaurant already exists. It's already got the expensive stuff, the plumbing, the vents and all that kind of thing. So make your brand in Uno instead of some random sports bar that nobody
And then you
can
get
name
the
the
pizza
restaurant,
volume.
the name of the restaurant they stayed in last night. And then you'll get all that takeout revenue for pizza. You'll get all that takeout, and delivery from like the local DoorDash. And then believe it or not, the hotels we're already in, we're about 7 right now. They are seeing people from the local community come in and eat. I just don't say to my wife, let's go to the Marriott to get dinner tonight. We stall. And so all of them are seeing the revenue double, triple, and one's quadruple what they were before Uno. And so it's just been a phenomenal model. So where does the franchisee come in? So we have 3 business models for doing this for a hotel operator. Either A, you be the franchisee because they're already a franchisee of the hotel, so they're used to that. B, we'll operate it, okay, or C, and then pay you a rent. Or C, we'll match you with a local franchisee. And what's great for the local franchisee, we haven't done it yet, but we're looking for our first one is to say, look. Very low cost of entry, right? Because the building's there, and really all you're paying for are things that can't be nailed down, right? And obviously the initial working capital and all that kind of thing. And now you have a business for, really almost a tenth of what it would cost if you want to build your own, restaurant. So it's a good deal, but we're only doing that with people who have specific restaurant experience before. A lot of people want to get in the restaurant business. It sounds great. It is hard work. And you really have to know what you're getting into.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's great that those who are involved already can get involved with the seasoned team like you guys and have some confidence in the strategy you're putting behind them. So that's super special.
So yeah, well, it's been a good run on that.
Yeah. Thank you so much for making time to hop on our little show. I think this has been fantastic. I'm really glad that your exciting growth strategy was not letting people camp out inside of hotels, but close.
A pizza party.
Yeah, best wishes in the future. I think it's going to be a huge hit.
Great.
Thank you so much.
All right, thanks, Nick. I enjoyed it.
Thanks. Yeah.